21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
My background is like that I started playing with computers at a fairly young age. My dad bought me my first computer when I was 7, and I kind of started taking them apart, playing with them. And in middle school and lower school, I had a bunch of really nerdy friends, and we'd kind of, the teachers had no idea how to use the computers, so it was a little bit like a jungle, and we did crazy things like take them apart, plug power supplies into each other, cause explosions in the library. And so I was always sort of passionate about technology. It was not something that I really wanted to do as a career, but it was something that always interested me. I kind of fell into it because, quite honestly, I didn't know what else to do with my life. I have a degree in theology, and I didn't want to become a rabbi, so instead, here I am.
Are you introvert or extrovert?
I'm 53% extroverted technically, so I'm barely extroverted, I guess is the answer.
And you can still sit and do the programming 10-15 hours or?
No, I haven't written a line of code in 2 years probably. Kyle, my co-founder, who is, to be honest, after several decades of doing this, he's a little burned out of coding as well. But yeah, he's much deeper than I am. We've been really fortunate. We've hired a bunch of really smart people who have kind of taken over the day-to-day of that. And we focus on some other things. But I was never a really good programmer. I was a very fast programmer. I was good at getting stuff done, but I was never like exceptional programmer. Yeah.
But you have other skills that helped you develop your company. So let's go back to the journey. After the university, you were full-time employee for several companies, yes?
Yeah, so after university, I graduated during the last economic collapse. I couldn't really find a job, and I ended up getting an internship at a software company. It was called Aspirations. They made patient education software. I worked there and I enjoyed it. I got recruited by a company called Red Hat, which they're a fairly well-known software company. I worked there for a number of years, met a lot of great people. From there, I ended up working for a consulting firm, which is what brought me to Colorado. I worked there for a while. I worked with a number of different really large organizations. I was kind of doing the same thing over and over again. That's kind of how consulting is. You solve the same problem over and over again and get paid to do it. I found that to be a little frustrating. So I tried to start a product company, but I funded it via running a consulting company, which is something that requires a tremendous amount of discipline that I seem to lack. So the consulting side of that really cannibalized the product side of it. We ended up sort of being acqui-hired by one of our largest customers. Along that way, I met Kyle, who's my co-founder. He was one of my customers, then became my first employee at my consulting company. Then he came with me when we got acqui-hired. Fred Yoon, who's our co-founder, was the person that led the acqui-hire. He's our other co-founder. And we kind of together started HarperDB. Part of that was, we were extremely passionate about solving the problem that we solved. Part of it was that we kind of wanted to work in a different environment. We wanted to do things a different way. We had different thoughts about how entrepreneurship should look, how startups should be run, what vision and leadership should look like. And so we started HarperDB over 5.5 years ago. And we're still here, which is probably our biggest accomplishment. If you look at a lot of startups that are really successful or ones that are extremely unsuccessful, oftentimes you have a CEO who is really good at sales and is really good at convincing folks of sort of a shiny object. And they're really good at sort of pattern recognition and sort of focusing on delivering that to the market and in a very sales driven focused way. I really, and my co-founders, we wanted to build a product that was meaningful, that did something real, and we wanted to build a company around that culture where we were thinking about longevity, where we were thinking about, hey, we'll be here in 5, 10, 15 years. Where we were thinking about building something that will last, something that is really focused on the growth and journey of both the core of the company, the decisions you make there, as well as the product, in a very old school way. If you think about, GE, or if you think about Ford and how, they built these foundational companies and they grew from a similar perspective, and they really continue to iterate on the Model T until you have the Ford F-150, and, a company built up around that. And when I worked at Red Hat, Red Hat always made long-term decisions. I think there's a tendency in the startup world to make really short-term decisions that lack vision. We spent a lot of time in the beginning thinking about what our vision was, the problem that we wanted to solve, what kind of culture we wanted to create. And the vision that we had was we wanted to make developers' lives easier and better. And the culture we wanted to create was one that was extremely transparent and authentic. So I'm a pretty rough around the edges type dude. I'm not extremely polished. I don't speak that eloquently, and I'm not, I'm not someone you want up on stage in front of 50,000 people. I'm not that charismatic, but I try to be really authentic and transparent with our team and our customers, and I try to bring my real self to work every day. I think in terms of the vision, we also really try to be transparent with the people we're trying to solve problems for and authentically build them something they want to use.
What is success for you in business, and what is success for you in your personal life?
Yeah.
And do you have personal life?
Yeah. Success in personal life is probably a much harder to achieve goal. So I'll come back to that one. I think, I've worked at startups, and I've seen a lot of startups where the founders are very focused on exit. They're focused on, when that piece of it. We have had exit opportunities. We've had folks who are interested, but realistically, if I want to build a company that I want to work at for 20, 30 years, and for me, success is that we're still here, that our employees, we have very low turnover, that we've managed to scale the team by 100% while keeping the culture that we have, bringing in even better people than we had before, people who are smarter than we are, the founders, who are better at doing this, but who are a great cultural fit. And everybody wants to be here, and then you can feel it, and that they want to keep working on this and they want to keep building it. And that we, the founders, want to keep growing this and keep doing it for as long as we're able. I think in terms of obviously, we didn't do this because we're not socialists. We want to, we did it to create monetary value for ourselves, for our investors. And obviously that's something that we desire, but there are many ways to do that. And I think our ultimate goal is just keep growing a great company and building a great team. And ultimately those things will show up, and focus internally versus worrying about those external things. People find that confusing. They find interacting with us and our behavior is confusing because it's a little different because of that. I think success in the personal life side, that's been interesting for me, honestly. I'm turning 40 this year. I've been working in startups since I was in my 20s. And so my perspective on it has shifted dramatically as I get older and as my body doesn't work as well. And I've been through a lot. I was married, I got divorced while doing this. I'm lucky that I have a really great partner and I have an awesome stepson, and that they're hugely important to me in my life. I used to be really focused on buying a gigantic yacht someday, and now I'm more focused on building that life together. And I've had to, because when you do this from a longevity perspective, you have to shift your focus a little bit to instead of the outcome, you have to focus on be mindful of the present. That's sort of hard to do when being this founder and CEO of a company is all consuming and you have a million worries and people want to answer a million questions. And so that's been a journey for me. But I try to balance those two things. I'm not great at it, but I try my best. But I probably fail most of the time.
Do you think that the longevity factor is an important one when you think about that specific business versus personal life ratio? As most of people are thinking about exit strategy if they are not in family business.
Yeah, I think it is. I think realistically, even when you're thinking about exit strategy, it's always going to take longer than you think it is. It's always going to be a really long time. I think though, when you're not solely focused on exit, it definitely can take longer. And then the other element to that is you may have the opportunity to exit, but not want to. And so if you balance things correctly, that is more appealing. And hopefully if you're doing things correctly, your value keeps growing. I think that you definitely, we've had to be mindful about burnout. We've had to be mindful about mental health. We've had to be mindful about, living in the present, living today, enjoying life as it comes. And I think if, you're going to do something for 10, 15, 20 years and without necessarily the rewards that someone else would experience along the way, you have to really be able to internalize that and see success in other areas as well, and watch growth in other areas, and get enjoyment out of your life during that moment, because otherwise you're going to lose your mind and you're going to be a miserable person. And this is not an easy thing to do. And so I spend a lot of time, I go to therapy, every week for probably 3 hours in different forms, and I've done a lot of different things to kind of stay grounded, and it's important to me.
And it probably helps. And is there an honest conversation with your partner regarding the almost infinitive growth, and that growth, is it an organic growth, so it's easier because it's organic growth, or you cannot control that either?
Yeah, I'm super transparent with her. We have a great relationship. She's the HarperDB's biggest fan. So she's, we actually met in a co-working space where she was watching HarperDB grow. So she has sort of firsthand knowledge of it, and she believes in it more than I do. So that makes it a lot easier in a lot of ways, because sometimes, I don't want to get out of bed and I feel like everything is going to collapse around me. And so having a partner who believes is helpful. I think we do have to have honest conversations because it impacts her life, dramatically. That like one day we could be exiting and going and selling, and I could be living one lifestyle, and another day I decide I don't want to do that, or I don't want to raise around, or I don't want to take this deal. And, it's a roller coaster for her as well. Or other things will happen where something will just explode because the growth is organic. And unlike we do very large scale deals with very large companies. So it's not like I wake up one day and I log in and we went from 2,000 users to 20,000 users to 200,000 users. It's a much more mentally intensive, high touch, actively engaged thing for me to make us grow. And so I may get sucked into a certain area out of nowhere. Something might happen and my time goes from I'm working 20, 30, 40 hours a week to 100 hours a week. Or on vacation, I end up locked in a room taking calls for the days on end. And it's unpredictable. We've done a good job of trying to put systems in place to protect our personal life, to make my work-life balance easier. She's really mindful about that. We collaborate a lot on it, but it's still extremely hard and it's very stressful for both of us. But we do a good job of communicating about it and being honest about it, and just like being really honest and raw about it, and being able to acknowledge I don't know sometimes. Like, I just don't know what's going to happen, I think.
"20 years in developing businesses and developing yourself. What would you say autopilot states or trance state versus being into awareness or consciousness? What's your ratio? Do you think that last 20 years just passed away?
Yeah, no, it's I blinked one day and I'm 40 years old. It's a lot of how it feels. So I don't know the answer. Like, part of me, I was very conscious, active. I knew what was going to happen. I listened to the stories about other entrepreneurs and the toll it took on them. I went in knowing, but to be honest, like, on the flip side, was I prepared? Absolutely not. Would I do it all over again? I don't think so, but maybe, because I don't know what else I could do. But I feel like a lot of my life just kind of passed by and I wasn't there. I was, working 100 hours a week. I was constantly chasing something. I was not present. I didn't enjoy a lot of elements of my life. I'm lucky 40 is still young, and I plan to really enjoy the next 40 years of my life, because I feel like I missed out on a lot. I wonder if it was worth it. But I also, I don't know what else I could have done. I think, though, having a kid in my life, when I look at him, he ages so fast. His life is so much easier to see him, go from 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and the changes that he experiences there. I think that has been, I don't want to miss out on the next 8 years of his life. I don't want to not be present for that. But I still am not going to give up on HarperDB in any way. And so finding the way to balance being as present in his life as I can, sitting there and saying, every time I decide that I'm not going to hang out with him or not do something, being mindful of the decision and actively making that decision, kind of like what you said, is not being on autopilot about those decisions, not assuming that the business always needs me or I always have to go, and kind of taking a breath. And it could just be a single second, that 1 second in which you make that decision. I think that has changed my life, in that does allow me to be more present and actively engaged. but it's still an area of growth for me. I mean, since I was 18 years old, I lived in a Buddhist monastery briefly in Thailand, and I have been interested in Buddhism, and and mindfulness meditation. My father actually got me into mindfulness meditation when I was 9, and he was actively engaged in it. So I've always practiced that, but I've still a journey in getting better at it. And I think it's extremely important to do this and do it for a long time.
So you have business partners and you have a partner in your private personal life. So do you think that you would be able to cope with all that by yourself?
Not a chance. My co-founders are incredible. We're like brothers. We've been doing this together for a really long time. I trust them more than I trust anyone. I've been there. I've watched their kids grow up. I've been through, we've been through many personal things together, deaths, marriages, divorces, children being born, accidents. So we have a very strong bond. In my personal life, doing this alone would be impossible. What I will say is, one of the things I learned is that I've watched other founders, especially when you're the CEO, think that you have to have all the answers, that you have to be in charge of everything, and let their ego get in the way of that. By having co-founders, we actually split our equity equally. So we have an equal split amongst the three of us. And I did that very mindfully because I didn't want to be in this by myself. I didn't want to be like me carrying the ball alone. Kyle and Fred have put as much into this as I have. And when one of us is down, the other two are there to support them and kind of carry them through, because that's going to happen when you do something for 6 years. This was the best year we've ever had. I expect that next year will be the best year that we've ever had also. And I kind of feel like we're going to say that for kind of a long time. Like I said, we grew the team by 100%. We brought on phenomenal people. They have helped grow the innovation of the product. We're on the 4th release of the product. We continue to innovate and build this amazing thing that stays far and away innovative beyond what other folks are doing in the space. We have about 100,000 developers using the platform now. We brought on some really massive clients. We expect to grow probably well over 100% next year as well. And I would say I've been able to do that and hang on to the rocket ship because of all the shit that I've learned and all of the stuff that I've been through. And that the other cool thing is, like, even the excitement feels more grounded. So I get excited and I get, go down, but the roller coaster has lower ups and lower downs, but it just kind of mainly feels good all the time. And I think that stability from all the shit I've learned keeps me making good decisions, keeps me staying calm, keeps me being a better leader, keeps me being more authentic with my team. And it's been probably the best experience I've ever had. And while I do wonder occasionally if I would have done something else, I couldn't be happier to be doing this, despite everything and despite all the insanity.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.